Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to Felsbrunn Farm. We're halfway through clearing out all the trees around our farm before we go too much further and start working on the remaining trees that we've just driven past. I want to get rid of the stumps that we've got first of all, so I'm going to hook up to our stump grinder. There it is. And we're going to grind those stumps out. So we'll start with these ones just here. If we get rid of these four, then we've got a nice straight line that we can just run up to deal with the rest of them. So let's get the saw on. There we go. And as with the other attachments, you can hear that the engine is revving quite hard as it's spinning the PTO. Just another one of those new features that we've come to understand is in Farming Sim 19. It does make things a little bit noisier, but a little bit more realistic, I suppose. There we go. So that's this line cleared out. Now we just have this other line here that needs to be done. We're going to try and group our trees a bit more carefully this time out as well. Obviously we were getting some quite bad lag last time, partly just from the number of trees themselves, also in part down to all the foliage. So we'll make sure that we clean the trees and delimb them before we start pushing them together as well. That'll make things a bit easier. It'll take us a little bit longer to get all the trees kind of grouped together, but once they are grouped together, they'll be much easier for us to work, and the loading process should be smoother and faster. Just means we might have to be a little bit more careful with the cutting process. We might have to measure more than one, well, we're going to have to measure more than one set of trees. But that's fine, that's not a problem. We can just reposition the truck each time that we need to. So I'll grind out the rest of these stumps and I'll see you when we're ready to start cutting down some trees again. Alright, there we go. So that's 6 trees cut and cleaned. So let's get those into position. Then we can start chopping them and getting them on the trailer. And then we can do the next 6 and so on and so forth until we've cleared that set of trees. Looking forward to seeing what our final cash total is going to be. Don't forget we did spend a fair bit of money last time out towards the end picking up that plough on lease, and also, what else did we buy? I'm trying to remember now. What else was it we picked up? Oh yes, the cultivator. We picked up the cultivator as well, didn't we? Nothing else new, is there? No. So, you know, we obviously spent some of the money that we did earn to pay for those. So that's reduced our bank balance a little bit on what it could be from all this logging. Just trying to shove these now. Try and keep them all together. It's got caught on one of the stumps there. There we go. So we need to kind of got that one hooked. Got underneath the forks. There we go. So we just kind of need to square those up a little bit now. So we'll do the same as we did last time. We'll drop the rear weight and use that to kind of push the logs and square them up a bit. It doesn't need to be exact, but as long as we can keep them pretty close together, then it will just make things easier for us going forward. Let's give those two on the end a slight nudge. Oops, there we go. That's not too bad. They're reasonably close together. So let's get the trailer. Get that pulled alongside. Of course there would be a stump in the way, wouldn't there? There we go. That looks about right. So that will give me a pretty good indication of where I need to actually make my cuts. So about here. And there we go. Trees are cut. Now we just have to get them loaded. I am going to move the trailer out of the way just a little bit, so that I can actually gain easy access to the logs, and then from there easy access to the trailer. So if we park the trailer there. There we go. Now I can approach those stacks from either side and then have a nice clear run to the trailer from there. So let's start. Let's get that rear weight lifted back up. Let's start stacking some logs. Alright, nearly got these first 6 trees loaded. I think we'll sell them in batches of 6 as well. Save overloading the trailer, or, you know, just speed the process up, I think, if we can just clear the trees in groups of 6 from start to finish. Let's grab these last 2 pieces. Should hopefully be able to get these both together. Okay, if we're lucky, they'll stay in the claw. There we go. So, that actually is a pretty decent load there for 6 trees inside the trailer. So let's go and see just how much those logs are worth. In theory, 6 trees at around 4 grand a tree should give us somewhere in the region of around 24 grand. I don't think we're going to get that much, but let's have a look. Uh, 20 grand. Okay, so we're getting around about 3.5 grand a tree for 20.5. That's not too bad. Yeah, I can live with 3.5 grand a tree. So that's the first 6 done. There is a, a partially loaded tractor there, look. There we go. So let's move on, get the next 6 cut, cleaned and stacked, and then you know, keep working our way down in batches of 6. Second load of trees should get us another 20 grand or so. A little bit less, 19.7. So maybe we're affecting the price of wood. We've lost about £1 there, or 800 or so on the previous load. Maybe we're kind of flooding the economy of at the lumber mill a little bit too much. Got 114,000. You know what? I'm thinking maybe we do a little bit of wood chipping with what's left. Let's see, how much is a wood chipper going to cost me? 64,000 for that. Trouble is, I don't have really anywhere to store them other than just building a pile. Well, we don't have to necessarily sell the wood right now. We seem to be losing money. So instead, what I think we'll do, because we own the lumber, the truck, we own the timber runner and the dolly. They're not leased. We paid for those. So I think what we'll do is we'll cut those remaining trees down and just leave them loaded in the trailer off to the side somewhere, and then we can sell them a little bit later when we've given the sawmill a chance to recover a little bit. So maybe in a day or two, let that price sort of hopefully go back up a bit. That might be the way for us to go forward, and then we can still then grind out the stumps, plough the land and join those fields together, because the trees won't be in the way anymore. So I think that's what we're going to do. We'll load up the trailer instead and just leave the stuff parked, so that we don't have to worry about it. We've got 114 grand, and just to make sure I don't start getting designs on spending that money, I'm going to throw that in the bank now, just to help bring our loan debt down a little bit. There we go. So it's under 1.1 million now, which is better than before. So let's get the rest of these trees down and pruned and cut and stacked, and then we can get on with getting these fields combined. There we go. That's a lot of wood on the back of this trailer. We're going to move this out of the way. Somewhere over here, I think. There we go, and we'll hang on to this for another day or two. Just let the price of wood hopefully try and balance out a little bit. There we go. Just got to be careful with this axle steering. Just want to move it far enough away. That'll do. That it's not going to cause issues for our seeder, which will hopefully be up and running pretty soon. So we're going to quickly grind out these stumps that are left over, and once that's done we'll go grab our plough and cultivator from the store. Might have to take two separate trips. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to carry both at the same time, so in which case we'll just grab the plough first of all. I'm going to plant sunflowers, I think, on this field here. And we have got enough cash that I might buy the header now as well. I'd been toying with the idea of getting rid of the header trailer, because we don't really seem to use it. But what I might well do is... oops, wrong button. There we go. Is I might keep it as a way to load up the Helianthus header. I get the feeling it's a little bit bigger than our grain header. We'll check the measurements in the store in a moment. There we go. So a little row of stumps to grind out, as you can see. This will take a little while, so I'll get these done and I'll catch up with you again in just a moment. And there we go, it's the last of the stumps. So, we are finally free and able to start ploughing these fields together. Have a nice little bit of re-sculpting going on over here. Make this one really big field, and then we'll cultivate this, and this will be our sunflower field. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the others. I might possibly do a crop on each, a separate crop on each of the other two. I don't know yet. I have to think about that one. Just going to drop that there for a second. I just need to quickly move the New Holland out of the way. There we go. And we'll drop that just there as well. Right, let's go get our plough. Quite a nice little extra chunk of land here. At least 2 passes, probably 3 passes with the 6-metre seeder. And we might possibly take the field slightly closer to the road along that side. I don't want to take it any closer on that side because the ground gets really bumpy and uneven around there. I suppose I could possibly bring that out a little bit closer to the road as well. It's just us that uses it. There's no traffic up here, so we don't have to worry about traffic in the way when the combine turns. But again, towards the bottom edge just there of that lower end of field 2, it is quite rough around there, and the path itself isn't particularly smooth either, so there might not be much space to kind of expand that way. It's a tricky one. I don't really want to put an uneven edge on there for the sake of it. So the patch 1.2 for PCs is now out. It's still on the way for consoles. We should hopefully have it within a week or so. This is the patch that is bringing the terraforming tool. And a lot of other bug fixes as well. I was having a read through the patch notes earlier, and it does have a lot of little fixes in there. Some of the things like being able to close combines now, that should be fixed. Rain is supposed to be being fixed, so we should hopefully, once that patch goes live, no longer see rain falling inside of buildings and vehicles. Obviously that was something that was supposed to be part of the base game and only really worked in very, very specific locations, and everywhere else it just didn't work at all. So it looks as though maybe that is actually going to be sorted out properly with this patch, or at least that's what the notes are indicating. A few other little fixes as well, some AI tweaks and some other bits and bobs. We'll have a full rundown of the patch notes once it goes live, and we actually can try and test some of those hopefully and see if they have actually improved things. And of course that is going to add in a couple of extra little bits, with regard to the terraforming tool itself and the way that we can react and interact with the ground. So yeah, looking forward to patch 1.2 when that goes live, and as I say, should be hopefully within the next week. No official date yet from Giants. They have just said it should hopefully be a week or so, for the console version. They have also said something about contracting as well. I'm trying to remember what that was. Well, let me see if I can find the patch notes again. Have another little quick read of those. Oops. Trying to read while driving. Not the smartest idea. Right, where are we? Right, changelog, here we go. Let's pull into the yard. Now, where was that thing I did see? Here's some interesting things. Various vehicle and tool fixes tweaked some crops. It'd be interesting to see what the tweaks to the crops are. I imagine one of those tweaks might be fixing cotton bales that float. I wonder if they're going to fix or tweak the economy of the crops a little bit as well. Rebalanced animals and husbandries. Fixed horse functionality. Fixed various dog issues. Fixed rain collisions. Fixed player movement issues, improved helper AI, fixed BGA functionality. Be interesting to see what they mean by that. Weather system tweaks, night-to-day transition tweaks. This isn't everything. I'm just kind of skimming through. There's a few multiplayer tweaks as well, including cleaning horses in multiplayer, some performance warnings. It looks like some more support has been added in for various different wheels as well. So if you do want to use something like a G29 or a Thrustmaster or something like that, obviously there's a much bigger selection of support items on PC than there is on console, but hopefully you should be able to use those two wheels reasonably well with 19 after the patch, if you can't already. I have got a G29 of my own, I just haven't had it set up and added in yet. I did see actually somebody had tried using a Logitech side panel. Well, I say a Logitech, it's the Cytec, but obviously Logitech owns Cytec now. I did see someone using the side panel from the Cytec steering wheel side panel combo on a PS4, and that may just have been a bug as part of the control patching. So I get the feeling that that is probably not intended and may not work after the patch. So be interesting to see if that is going to be the case. if it does work after the patch, then I might have to seriously look at getting myself a side panel, because that would dramatically improve the first person experience. The biggest drawback to driving in first person like this is that if you're driving with a wheel, your point of view is pretty much fixed unless you have a joypad nearby so that you can do this and look around. You come up to a junction and you want to turn, and like that you have to kind of stop, find your joypad, pick that up, then pan the stick, and then put the pad down, then start moving the wheel again. And whoa, what the hell just happened there? Looks like we got clipped on something there. I thought I was clear of the barrier, but yeah, I mean it's clunky. It's frustrating that we don't have the ability to pan right stick movement like this built into the wheel. So it's not just Farming Simulator, it's pretty much any game that involves a steering wheel. You know, there just isn't the ability to, you know, to pan the camera like that. You know, so if the SciTech wheel is finally kind of supported, even if not officially, for Farming Sim 19 on consoles, then that would make things massively improved. You know, to have that side panel nearby with that joystick control as well as all those buttons. I don't think we'd be able to map the buttons the way we want them, but it would certainly make things easier to use. And who knows, maybe going forward they will actually finally add a proper support for that. Maybe Logitech's version is a little bit more flexible than the original SciTech version. Who knows? I mean, there's so many unknowns when it comes to that. You know, there were people that said that you could use the side panel on Xbox One for Farming Sim 17 if you went through a USB converter. Some people said that worked. A lot of people kind of discredited that at the same time, and we never really saw anything official to really show that that definitely was the case. But you always have to be a little wary sometimes as well. Sometimes these videos, they can be cooked up footage. So you know, what you see on screen is someone moving a joystick and the camera panning, and what you don't see is someone off camera behind the camera using a DualShock, for example. Yeah, these are all, you know, the ways that some people can kind of fake videos. And I'm not saying that the video I saw was fake. You know, I genuinely hope that it was genuine. But you do have to be wary of things like that. So I wouldn't rush out and buy a side panel just yet, because we have absolutely no guarantee that that video was genuine, and that even if it was, the side panel will still be supported once that update goes live. You know, too many unknowns, too many variables at the moment. Right, so we've got a baseline here to work from. Let's turn our plough. It looks as though this field is slightly further out at this end than the other one, so let's find a line which is a little bit too far out. Let's try and bring the plough in a touch. There we go. Let's allow create fields. Try and drive as straight as we possibly can, using that furrow ridge mark there as a guide. And this is where it gets a bit tricky, because that ridge disappears, but I have kind of got the weeds that follow that line a little bit, so trying to stay straight. Looks as though I have drifted in a bit. That's fine, we can always correct that a little bit. And in fact, I'm actually going to turn off create fields just to finish this straight line off here. There we go. And let's go back and just extend that field just a touch. So it's all nice and straight just here. And then it steps in a row. Oh, actually, that was pretty straight all the way along, wasn't it? I thought it stepped in halfway down, but we did a pretty good job of staying straight there. So if I get back to that furrow again, which was this one here, lower that down, allow create new fields, and just drag this to the edge carefully. Get my lights on so I can see clearer as well. There we go. Turn off create new fields. And there we go. We have linked. I see what I mean about it being really rough and bumpy around here. There just isn't really the space to extend the field. So we'll leave that shape as it is. But there we go. We have joined those two fields here. I just want to put an extra width going across. This just so that it makes it easier for us when it comes to going down the line. So I need to turn create fields back on again. Is that going to cover the length of the plough? I might do one more pass just to be safe. I'm going to have to do the same again at the other end of the field as well. There we go. And that'll give us enough space to actually drop the plough and not risk cutting a ridge at the edge of the field there. So let's move to the other end. Let's do the same over there as well. We'll put in 3 passes to give us a nice width, a safety barrier, so to speak. And we'll get the fields joined over here. Hopefully, again, it'll be nice and straightforward. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to turn off create a field first, so I can get some guideline ridge marks in. So I drop the plough here. And again, you can see that the field's slightly bigger on this side than the other. So that means we're going to need to go all the way across this field so that we have that guideline all the way to the far end. And then we'll double back. We'll make our connection and then make the width the way it needs to be. There we go. One thing I have actually been very impressed with ploughs, you may have just seen it there, is they tend to get pulled all the way across, or if not all the way, it's certainly a lot closer to the very edge of the field now, like that. So before, we used to have this horrible kind of triangular section like that, where the plough just didn't come to the end, and we had these little triangular patches all the way along the edge of the field whenever we used a plough. It looks as though the way things go now with the AI, that they're more consistent in actually dragging the plough all the way to the edge of the field rather than just the front of the plough. It now kind of goes from the back of the plough. That is a huge improvement when it comes to AI ploughing, because that was one of the most frustrating things, was getting an AI worker to plough a field and then having to do a massive amount of tidying up at the end. You still kind of have to do a little bit, but it's so much less work involved now than there was before, and that's a huge improvement in my book. It's just, again, one of those simple little things that you don't necessarily immediately pick up on, but really does make a big difference. And that, I think, is one of the things that have gone largely unnoticed. I mean, I know there's been a lot of criticism of Farming Sim 19 by a lot of players, saying it's just broken, it's not ready, it shouldn't have been released in this state. Honestly, I haven't had a vast majority of the problems that I've seen people talking about. I've had a couple of bugs, a couple of glitches. You know, you've seen them. You know, I haven't cut them out of my videos. I've left them in when they've affected me, because I think it's important for those to be seen, you know, and to be addressed. But I don't think the game is worthy of the sheer barrage of criticism it's had. I think it's in a much better state than people have been saying it is. I think a lot of people are basing the performance of 19 at launch to the performance of 17 at the end, with, you know, a lot of mods installed as well, including things like seasons. A lot of people have been complaining that it just doesn't run the same, that visual effects don't look the same, and that you know, all these different features are missing, and what they don't realise, or they just willfully forget, is that half of the things that they're talking about were actually added in by mods like Seasons, and weren't part of the base game of 17 either. So it's a little frustrating having to wade through that barrage of criticism that is, in my mind, largely, not completely, but largely unjustified. And sometimes people, we all do it, not just with with this, but with everything in life. We always look back fondly on things through rose-tinted spectacles if we have happy memories of things, and we kind of forget the bad stuff and we remember only the good stuff. And it's only when we go back and kind of relive that we suddenly realise, actually, maybe this wasn't quite so good as we thought it was. Of course, it's hard to kind of do that with a video game unless you uninstall on an air-gapped system, so something that can't download updates, and you just play the launch version. With digital, that's impossible, because it always installs the most up-to-date available version when you do a digital download. But with disk, it's easy to do that. You can just remove all trace of it from your hard drive, and then make sure you're not connected to the internet, and then reinstall and run the original version as it was at launch without any updates. And there were issues and features that weren't in 17 at launch that then got added in, or got tweaked, or got improved. We were talking about how bad the AI was at the launch of 17. The much improved AI wasn't that much improved at the time. It got better as the game progressed. And it's exactly the same with this. People are again complaining that the AI seems to be a bit of a step down. It's not as good as people have said it's supposed to be. We've been lied to, and it's one thing to kind of do in-house testing, but it's always on a small scale. It's not until a game goes live and your testing audience, so to speak, goes from a handful of people to thousands upon thousands of people. Some people might not experience bugs. Some people will experience bugs. I mean, as I said a moment ago, some of the bugs that I've experienced haven't been that big, haven't been that much of a problem. Some of the bugs that a lot of people have experienced have been sort of around the same level. There have been some pretty big bugs, apparently, that other people have suffered that I haven't seen or encountered at all. So it's exactly the same for Giants. They can test and test and test, but with a small team, it's going to take them a lot longer to find those bugs than tens of thousands of people all playing the game at the same time, and that's when those bugs suddenly start to get noticed quite quickly. And that's the same with every single game. It's not something that's unique to Farming Simulator. It's not something that's unique to Giants. They've worked hard on the game. It's good. It's flawed in places, but it's good. I think it's generally an improvement on 17. I think the patch should hopefully fix most, if not all, of the issues that people are having. It won't fix everything. Patches never do. And invariably, there is the risk that when you fix something, you break something else in the process. We've seen that many, many times. But, I mean, you look at some of the other games and the other studios out there, you look at the state that EA releases their games in every year. They pump out their annual franchises that are riddled with bugs and can make the games unplayable, completely unplayable for the first 6 to 8 weeks of a launch. You look at Bethesda. I don't think Bethesda have ever released a game that doesn't have some form of crippling bug or glitch somewhere. And you only have to look at just how bad Fallout 76 has been at launch, for the latest example of that. But it's not just 76. Every game I've ever played by Bethesda has been riddled with bugs at launch, and has taken quite some time to fix. You know, some studios, you know, they just pump things out and they don't seem to care. Giants isn't like that. You know, you genuinely get the feeling that they do care, but they're a small team. They certainly don't have the size of a team or the budget of a team like Bethesda or a dev working for EA. You know, they're a small studio, you know, working with a small number of staff and a small budget. They're not a AAA game company. So you have to kind of take those things into account, and just be nice if people, you know, took that into consideration. But I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, unfortunately. I think, you know, people have their mindsets and they tend to stick with it. You know, trying to change people's minds on things that they've already made their mind up on is nigh on impossible these days. So yeah, we'll just have to wait for the patch, see what happens, and see what improves, and fingers crossed the game will be a lot better for it. So I'm going to carry on ploughing away, joining these fields together. It'll be another few passes, and once that's done, we'll go get the cultivator. We'll cultivate this field out, and then we'll start planting sunflowers with our brand new Tempo seeder. And that's the ploughing done. Our fields are now properly linked. Excellent stuff. So, let's fold the plough up. No, I'm going to have to turn it first. We've got to return this because it's leased. Now, obviously, we could just shortcut return it, but we've got to go and collect our cultivator anyway, so we may as well take it back and drop it in the return box. I do prefer to do that more often than not. So we'll get this returned, we'll grab the cultivator, get that ground cultivated out, and then we can start seeding our sunflower crop. Alright, here is our 5-meter cultivator, the AgroMash. So we're going to use the New Holland to pull this. Let's get it opened out. And then we're going to go hook up our seeder to the case. So we'll get that kind of plopped in position. See, the sun is starting to set. We're getting some pretty long shadows start to appear now. We've got a good couple of hours of light left, but we are, as I say, getting some interesting shadows forming now. So not a huge amount of light left. Enough time for us to seed our fields, though. That isn't in question. So if I just jump out here for a second. Let's drop off the front loader. And the weight. There we go. You can see the maintenance requirement on our New Holland is now just under halfway according to that gauge there. I'm deliberately running this one down a bit because I want to really see the visual change that happens when a piece of equipment runs right down. I know it's going to burn more fuel and it's going to end up costing me a lot of money to repair, but I kind of want to see that, you know, that new feature in a bit more detail. Going to have to be careful with the seeder, trying to get this stocked up here. And the Tempo will accept fertilizer, but I'm going to try and do it with just seed to get us started. There you can see the seed level going up. So we get 2200 litres in the front box there. You can see the side pipe there, the red tubing. That will actually connect the pipe to the seeder once we hook up. It doesn't work on the other tempo, the larger tempo. I just want to quickly see if it works on this seeder here. I don't think it will do. Again, it's not designed for this specific piece of equipment. And there you go, you see, no connecting pipes. So those connecting pipes that we saw obviously are keyed to very specific bits of equipment, and the seed box is keyed specifically to this tempo. There you can see is that hose pipe there attached to the back. Let me see if it will actually accept some fertilizer in the back of this if I'm careful. It might try and put more seed in. Oh, there we go. 136 litres. That's hardly anything at all, is it? So we want to change the crop. We want sunflowers. There we go. This is a 6 metre working width, so a little bit more than the cultivator. So we're going to let the cultivator get ahead of us just a touch. Make sure he's got turning room as well. Might be a bit problematic near the boxes of eggs, but we'll keep an eye on it. There we go. Let's unfold our seeder. There we go. Try and get lined up. And off we go. Seeding sunflowers on our farm. Excellent stuff. Not too far off getting this field done now, as you can see. Most of it is done. The seeder ran out of fertilizer really quickly, so I think we won't bother putting fertilizer in this. We'll just keep it with seed only. It's much easier for us to manage this way, because then we can just spray it with our fertilizer spreader and our sprayer and make sure I get a nice even coverage. It has skipped in a couple of places, so I'm going to have to go and tidy up the field again afterwards, which is a little frustrating, but it's not too bad. It's certainly not like that first couple of passes that we had. If I head over to the opposite side, it seems to be where most of the skips have happened. You can see it's all pretty clear along here. That's where it ran out of fertilizer, and it's just been seeding ever since. There's a little skip just there. There's a little one just there, and that's pretty much it. Just those two skips so far that I've picked up on. There might possibly be others, but I'll do a proper check of the field once it's done, and then I'll move on to working fields 3 and 5 and get those seeded as well. I'm going to put some soybean on one of those fields and some canola on the other field, so we'll kind of have three different crops available to us come the next harvest. So that's it from me. Thanks for watching. I am Jim Bob, and I'll be back with some more Felsbrunn Farm very soon.